All right. Let's just give me 2 or 3 bullet points on what you just viewed.
So, first of all, pray for Cliff Kingsbury, because that's a coach who should be making the leap with a nice quarterback who I think could be a franchise quarterback at some point, but he's going to lose a lot of games this year. And so, prayers up for Cliff. I would say the 2 teams that I think you're a little bit underselling, Dallas with Dak Prescott, I really think, and I'm going to regret saying this, but we're not talking enough about how good the Cowboys can be with Dak Prescott. I mean, you were seeing in November of last year, Dak Prescott had thrown for so many yards in the beginning of the season. He was still on some top 10 leaderboards as far as total yardage and stuff like that. So I think if he's healthy, I think there's a pretty high floor there. And what they do with their draft and going defense only and getting some young athletes over on the defensive side of the ball, I think it's going to be really impressive. I would also say if Aaron Rodgers is in Green Bay, they're going to win a lot of games. I joke a lot about how last year Jordan Love should have been the Rookie of the Year, because who had a bigger impact on their franchise than Jordan Love? Because Aaron Rodgers got so angry. Well, this is another year of Aaron Rodgers being really angry. If he shows up for training camp, and I expect him, he doesn't have a lot of options at this point. I think he will play for the Packers this year. He's going to be doubly angry. And maybe this is last year in Green Bay. They still have a great coach. They still have a great roster, great infrastructure. If he plays, he's angry. We know what that can look like. He'll be motivated. Maybe he'll be, feuding with the front office during the season. I think that's a lot of wins when you factor that all together, Colin.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you at all. I really don't. I said, I don't know. Generally speaking, my theory is the NBA stars are always noisy, so you can be a noisy NBA team. Brooklyn was noisy, and they were still great. In the NFL, a lot of it's choreography. It's belief in each other. Noisy teams tend to erode. They've been incredibly noisy. But to your point, they've got the best players, and Aaron plays well when he's disgruntled and unhappy. Now, you had an article yesterday detailing your interview with Russell Wilson, and I actually used it on the air because it was so funny. I juxtaposed Aaron Rodgers' snippiness and Russell Wilson's optimism. I think he used the word amazing 13 times in 2 sentences. Yeah. But it did feel authentic in that he does feel like he complained and they listened. And it does feel like, and he's always been like a little over the top, but that was my takeaway reading it. Like, he complained first time, they listened, and it really does matter. Like, it does feel like Pete and Russell, a little simpatico here, right?
I totally agree. The relationship is on the same page at this point, and he was in total optimist mode when we talked on Tuesday. And it's funny to me now, because now any team that gives their quarterback a say is almost taking a shot at Aaron Rodgers, right? Like, that's the joke around the league, that Bruce Arians is letting everybody know that Tom Brady gets all this input because he wants to maybe needle the Packers a little bit. When the Vikings drafted Kellen Mond in April, they let everybody in the world know that Kirk Cousins had been informed and was on board, because, again, that is the opposite of what happened in Green Bay and what made Aaron Rodgers so upset. And so, yeah, I think they're on the same page. And I think vibes and cohesion and chemistry is always the biggest part of Seattle. That locker room has had a lot of healthy disagreements. I remember going there when they were at their heyday. Remember, this is a franchise where there were 2 fist fights the week they won the Super Bowl, okay? Percy Harvin was just going around punching everybody, and then on Sunday they blew out the Broncos. So I think that it's really easy for them to get back on the same page. And I wasn't surprised when I talked to Russ, and he's in full optimist mode. He's talking about how much he loves Gabe Jackson. He's talking about the collaboration with the new offensive coordinator, Shane Waldron. I think that there's going to be very little problems in Seattle with that regard. I think he explored it. I think he wanted more say. I think that franchise quarterbacks, there's no way to get fair value for them at all. And so they know they're kind of stuck on a year-to-year basis if they're under contract. And so I think this is the model. You complain a little bit, maybe you leak that you might want to go somewhere else, and you get more say in the organization. I think Russ played it exactly right.
So yesterday I had the Steelers at 8-9, and I think the window's closed. And I said snarkily yesterday, I said, I'm sorry, but the fact that now Big Ben's only doing 2 natty lights after dinner in the summer, not 6, like, spare me. It's a little late to. Yeah. First of all, when I hear he's losing weight, well, why did he need to lose weight? Like, so I am being cynical on this. The news that Big Ben's in, quote, the greatest shape of his career. What was your initial impression?
Well, first of all, that's a pretty low bar to clear. But second of all, any young quarterback watching right now, whether you're in college or high school, here's my advice. Start the TB12 method in the first year of your career and not the last year of your career. It's a little too late. I think he's just totally past it. I think he doesn't have any arm strength. I think that him losing weight isn't going to matter just because it looked like at stretches last year, he just was incapable of throwing the football in any meaningful way. And so I don't think that this is going to matter. I'm happy for him. He's getting healthy and getting healthier than he has been. But I think this is kind of the epitome of a non-event July NFL story.
By the way, I want to go back to Aaron Rodgers because I threw this out yesterday. The way to solve this issue is Jordan Love can play. That Jordan Love has a good preseason, and they look at it and go, all right, this is okay. Now, I don't think that'll happen. I think Aaron will play the season. Is there any scenario, he's dismissive, he is difficult, any scenario, trade deadline week 8 or 9, Jordan's look pretty good, and they're just over it. Green Bay, we saw the draft room, Kevin, after they got that, that story came out that Aaron was ticked off, and you could palpably sense how fatigued they were. Is there any scenario in which you think Green Bay, before the deadline, would just say, this is ruining the temperature in the rooms here, we're moving off him?
It's a great question. I think the problem they face in dealing Aaron Rodgers at all is I don't know what fair value is for a franchise quarterback because we haven't seen it. In the NBA, we saw the Anthony Davis trade, and we kind of know what it looks like when a superstar gets dealt. In soccer, you see $300 million price tags on guys, right? But in the NFL, okay, Jamal Adams or Jalen Ramsey go for 2 firsts. But I'll tell you what, Aaron Rodgers or Russell Wilson are a heck of a lot more important to their franchise than those 2 guys, even though they're terrific players. And so I think that would change the paradigm of the entire NFL if you actually put a price tag on the reigning MVP. But no, I don't think there is a scenario. Brian Gutekunst just said the timeline hasn't changed. And I talked to him last year when Aaron Rodgers was having this MVP season. I said, does this change your outlook and your quarterback plan? And he said no. And Jordan Love is an example of what happens when you actually do best player available. Every GM says we're taking best player available. We're taking the number 1 guy on our board. The Packers actually did it, and everybody hated it, right? So I think that they like to play the long game. It's total Ron Wolf, the sort of system set up there 25 years ago. I think that they would stand pat and say to Aaron Rodgers, you're either playing for us or you're not playing football in 2021. And I do not see a scenario in which he's dealt, even in the middle of the season, even if Jordan Love is better than we think.
All right, Kevin Clark, the Ringer, NFL writer, host of Slow News Day videocast. Great seeing you as always, Kev. Appreciate it.
Anytime, Colin. Thanks for having me.
All right, there you go. So he doesn't believe there's a scenario. I don't know what fair market value is. It would seem to me for Aaron Rodgers, I get a starter, 2 firsts, and a couple of seconds. That seems reasonable. So do you trust your scouting department? I don't know what fair market value is.
I think fair is a fantasy.
Yeah, it is. They're
Stop trying to win every trade. Do what's best for the situation and for your future.
Yeah, like it doesn't matter if it's radio, television, NFL, NBA, baseball. About 1%